Energy Transition Index. So yesterday I've come across a question in one of the prelims test series where they asked about the transition index is published by, and 4 options were given. One was International Energy Agency, the second one was International Renewable Energy Agency, third one was World Economic Forum, and fourth one was International Monetary Fund. If we just go by the name, it is misleading, right? It's related to energy. So we might think it is International Energy Agency or International Renewable Energy Agency, but it is actually published by World Economic Forum, right? World Economic Forum publishes this Energy Transition Index. So that is the first thing we have to know about this index. And what actually happens in this index? World Economic Forum tries to rank the countries on the basis of how well they are balancing their energy security with environmental sustainability. How well every country is balancing its economic needs with the environmental sustainability, right? So this balance is basically measured in every country by the World Economic Forum, and accordingly ranks are given. 115 countries are ranked based on 40 indicators. The index is generated. Sweden is the country which was ranked the first, right? Sweden was the first, and India's rank actually improved by 2 places compared to last year, and now India's rank is 76th, right? India's rank is 76th, and China's rank is lower than India. This also we have to know. And only 5 countries have improved. According to this World Economic Forum Energy Transition Index, only 5 countries have improved compared to last year. Only 5 countries have improved, and India is one among them. So climate change efforts are very much important for us with respect to environment. Now, any index that is related to climate change or greenhouse gas emissions or related to renewable energy, all such reports and indices are very much important for us, right? So Energy Transition Index is one such report. So it's published by World Economic Forum. It ranks the countries based on the balance between energy security and environment sustainability. 115 countries, 40 indicators. Sweden was the country which was ranked first. India's rank improved 2 places and came to 76th. China's rank is lower than India's rank, and only 5 countries have improved their rankings, and India is one among those 5 countries. These are some points with respect to Energy Transition Index. Now the second report which we are taking up is Emissions Gap Report. Emissions Gap Report, GAP, GAP. So this report is published by UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, right? This report, Emissions Gap Report, is published by United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Now what does this UNEP do? In this Emissions Gap Report, the UNEP tries to assess the gap between what should be done and what is actually being done, right? So UNEP tries to measure what should be done and what is actually being done to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, we all know about Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015. Under this Paris Agreement, every country pledged some contributions. They are called INDCs, Intended National Contributions, right? Nationally Determined Contributions, INDCs. These are nothing but some targets which every country has kept as a part of Paris Agreement, right? Now, this UNEP in this Emissions Gap Report is trying to measure the gap. What promise did a country make in Paris Agreement, and what is actually that country doing now, right? So how much gap is there between the target and what is being done in the reality? So that gap is measured by UNEP in this Emissions Gap Report for every country, right? This is the theme of this Emissions Gap Report. And also through this Emissions Gap Report, the UNEP tries to bridge this gap also. It tries to give suggestions so that how a country can bridge this gap, right? That is also there in this report. And one of the key observations by UNEP in this report is UNEP said that world will fail to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature goal under the Paris Agreement with the present level efforts, right? What it was saying is, if the countries, the present level of efforts, the present rate at which the countries are keeping the efforts, if the same efforts continue, then UNEP is saying that it's very difficult to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of 2015 Paris Agreement. Now, what was the target of Paris 2015 Agreement? All the countries have pledged that they will keep the rise of temperature only till 1.5 degrees Celsius, right? They said that the rise in temperature will be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, what UNEP is saying is, with the present efforts of the governments, it's really difficult and it's almost impossible to meet this target, right? So that is one finding. And India, in this report, it said that India is the fourth largest emitter of greenhouse gases, right? Fourth largest emitter of greenhouse gases. The first one is China. China is the leading emitter of greenhouse gases. Second being USA. Third being European Union, EU, European Union. And the fourth one is India. So these four countries are the top four leading emitters of greenhouse gases. Areas where they can mislead us, right? India is not the first. China is the first, US is second, third is EU, that is all the European countries put together, and fourth is India. This is one observation that is made. And it also says that energy sector is the leading sector of greenhouse gases. Now there are various sectors. Agriculture is one sector, energy is one sector, transport is one sector, industries is one sector. Now all these sectors, the common thing is all these sectors, they release greenhouse gases. Agriculture also releases greenhouse gases, right? Industries also release greenhouse gases. Transport sector, that is the vehicles also release. And energy sector, that also releases the thermal power plants and all, coal-based thermal power plants. All these also release greenhouse gas emissions. Now, among this, energy sector is the leading sector of greenhouse gases. That was also told by UNEP in this emissions gap report, right? And one positive thing about India, which it said is, India, with the present rate of efforts, will definitely reach its NDC targets. So that's why this report is important for us. Now, any report which gives a positive image about India, right? Because what is said is, all the countries put together, it's difficult to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. But the same report said that India is on the right track, right? The pace at which India is keeping the climate change efforts, emissions gap report is predicting that India will definitely reach its targets or the NDCs of Paris Agreement with the present level of efforts, right? So these are some points. Emissions gap report, UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, it basically assesses the gap between what should be done and what actually is being done. It also suggests some ways to bridge the gap. And it said that overall, if we see, it's difficult to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of the Paris Agreement. India is the fourth largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China, USA and EU. And energy sector is the largest contributor, not industries or agriculture, transport, right? And India will reach its NDCs. That was also predicted by this emissions gap report, right? This is the second report. And coming to the NDCs, we have discussed before, they are called intended nationally determined contributions, right? INDCs, intended nationally determined contributions. These are the targets promised by every country to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. These are the commitments of every country under the Paris Agreement, right? Under this Paris Agreement, some of the NDCs of India are, first is to reduce emissions intensity as a percentage of GDP by 33%, right? Emission intensity, there is a term called emission intensity, right? Emissions as a percentage of GDP, there is a calculation based on that emission intensity term is there. Now, India promised under this Paris Agreement that it's committed to reduce emissions intensity as a percentage of GDP by 33% by 2030, right? By 2030. This is the first target. Second target is 40% of the electricity needs in India will be done by renewable energy by 2030. This is the second promise of the country, India. What is it? 40% of the electricity needs of the country will be met by renewable energy sources, right? Not coal or natural gas, but renewable energy sources like solar, wind, wave, ocean, tidal, biofuels, all these things, right? 40%. Third thing is, by 2030, India committed to increase the carbon sink by 2.5 to 3 billion tons. What is carbon sink? Carbon sinks are many. Ocean is a carbon sink. Anything which dissolves carbon dioxide or captures carbon dioxide within itself is the sink. The literal meaning of sink is to get into. So forests are carbon sink. They take in carbon dioxide. Oceans are carbon sink, right? So what India promised is by 2030, India promised that it will be bringing 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional carbon sink in India. Now this helps to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, right? Carbon sinks will absorb the carbon dioxide and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will decrease. So this reduces the greenhouse gas emissions. So these are the three targets: emission intensity reduced by 33% as a percentage of GDP, 40% electricity from renewable energy needs, and 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional carbon sink by 2030. So the third topic is Ramsar sites. Ramsar sites, right? This is also important because this year 10 new Ramsar sites were added from India, right? 10 new Ramsar sites were added from India. So the total number of Ramsar sites in India is 37 now. 37 Ramsar sites are there from India. Now we'll discuss what this Ramsar site, but this is important because 10 new Ramsar sites were added from India, right? So now we'll see what is this Ramsar Convention. Ramsar is basically a place in Iran, right? In 1971, this Ramsar Convention was adopted. All the countries came together in this place called Ramsar to commit themselves for preserving and protecting wetlands, right? So this Ramsar Convention is about preserving and protecting the wetlands of the countries, right? This is also known as Convention on Wetlands, right? So this Ramsar Convention is about preserving and protecting the wetlands. I suppose everyone knows what is a wetland, right? Right? So if anyone has issues, just Google it and you will get the information. So wetlands are basically, to simply say, marshy and swamp lands, right? They are basically, to give an example for you, the interjection between river and the seas. Where river meets the seas, that place is one example of wetland. The Sundarbans Delta which we have in the West Bengal. Sundarbans Delta is also a wetland. It is the largest wetland of India. In fact, it is the largest Ramsar site of the world, right? Sundarbans Delta. So that was also added. That was added last year as a Ramsar site. So Delta region, where river brings its deposits and mixes with the sea. The confluence of river and sea, that region is also a wetland, right? Also a lake region. A lake region and land nearby the lake region is also a wetland. In Andhra Pradesh, we have Kolleru Lake, right? The region surrounding that Kolleru Lake is also a wetland. So in this way, wetlands are of different types. In fact, the paddy fields, they are also one kind of wetland. right? Every time they are under the water. So these all are wetlands. The government notifies different things as wetlands, right? So this is about wetlands. Now we'll get into the topic. So Ramsar Convention is about protecting and preserving the wetlands. It's also called Convention on Wetlands. What does this Ramsar Convention do? It basically tries to prepare an international framework of wetlands, right? An international network of wetlands. So all the wetlands in different countries, which are very much important, which are life sustaining, but are under threat, which need conservation, all such wetlands are integrated under this Ramsar Convention. So this Ramsar Convention tries to identify what all wetlands are there in India, of these wetlands which are very much important and which are under the threat and which need conservation. In this way, important wetlands from every country are identified and a network of these wetlands all over the world is prepared, right? So that is the basic objective of Ramsar Convention. It basically prepares a list of important wetlands in every country which need conservation, right? This is the target or objective. And under this Ramsar Convention only, we have a record called Montreux Record. Montreux, M-O-N-T-R-E-U-X, Montreux Record. This Montreux Record is basically, this is a list of wetlands. Now we have discussed that Ramsar Convention has the list of all important wetlands, right, from every country. Now of this list, in this list, which are those wetlands which are severely being degraded? All those such kind of wetlands are made a part of Montreux Record, right? For example, if we take India, in India, many wetlands are there. Of those wetlands, 37 wetlands were made Ramsar sites, right? Ramsar Convention recognized 37 Ramsar sites in India. Of these Ramsar sites, 2 Ramsar sites are there in Montreux Record from India, right? So these 2 Ramsar sites in India, out of the 37, they are very much degraded. They need extra protection, right? Changes are happening. Human induced changes are happening at a faster rate in these wetlands. That's why they need extra protection. That's why this Montreux Record was prepared. From India, total 37 Ramsar sites are there. In the Montreux Record, 2 Ramsar sites are there. The first one is Loktak Lake in Manipur, and the second one is Kollado Ghana, Keolodo, Kollado, Ghana. It's also called Kollado Ghana or Kollado Ghana in Rajasthan. And the first one is Loktak, L-O-K-T-A-K, Loktak Lake in Manipur. These 2 Ramsar sites were kept under Montreux Record, right? So this we have to know. So these 2 wetlands are there currently, and this year 10 new Ramsar sites were added, right? We need to know the names of these 10 new places, because simply they can ask about a place and ask where is it located and it's whether it is a Ramsar site or not, right? So that's why it's important. Now before going to that, there was a question in Prelims 2019 about the wetlands, right? We'll try to see that also. So there was a question about Ramsar, about wetlands, and one of that option in those questions was Ramsar Convention tries to protect all the wetlands in the India, right? This is wrong, because Ramsar Convention doesn't protect all the wetlands in India. It protects only 37 wetlands in India, right? Only those wetlands which are designated as Ramsar sites, only those wetlands Ramsar Convention will be taking care, right? So this was really a misleading option, because if we don't see that all word, the answer goes wrong. And only if we know this one option, if we could eliminate this option, the answer was ready there, right? So that's why every option matters and every word also matters, right? So Ramsar Convention tries to protect only the Ramsar designated sites in India. That means 37 wetlands in India, right? Not all the wetlands in India. There are a number of wetlands in India, right? So this is important. So this was prelims 2019 question. Just check it out, guys. Check the other options also. See the complete question. Now, these 10 Ramsar sites are important for us, right? These 10 Ramsar sites were added from 3 states. One is Maharashtra, second is Punjab, and the third one is Uttar Pradesh. These are the 3 states from which these 10 Ramsar sites were added, right? So firstly, Maharashtra's wetland which was added is important because this is the first Ramsar site for Maharashtra. This is the first Ramsar site, first ever Ramsar site for the Maharashtra. And its name is Nandur, Nandur. Nandur in Maharashtra was made a Ramsar site, and this is the first Ramsar site for the state of Maharashtra. Right? This is the first thing. Now we'll see Punjab. In Punjab, 3 sites were added. Keshopur Miani. This is one Ramsar site. The second one is Bias Reserve. Bias, B-E-A-S. There is a river called Bias, named Bias. Right? It's a tributary of Indus. So Bias, B-E-A-S, Bias Conservation Reserve. This is second site. Third one is Nangal, N-A-N-G-A-L. N-A-N-G-A-L. Right? These 3 places are in Punjab. These 3 were added as Ramsar sites recently, right? Keshopur Miani, Bias Reserve, and Nangal. Right? And now from Uttar Pradesh, first place is Nawabganj. Nawab, N-A-W-A-B, Nawabganj. Right? Second one is Parvati Agra. Second place is Parvati Agra. This is simple to identify because Agra is there. Third one is Saman, S-A-M-A-N, Saman. Saman. Fourth one is Samaspur, S-A-M-A-S-P-U-R, Samaspur. Fifth one is Sandi, S-A-N-D-I, Sandi. And sixth one is Sarsai Navar, S-A-R-S-A-I, Sarsai Navar. Right? Try to remember as many as possible. So Nandur in Maharashtra is the first Ramsar site for Maharashtra. Then from Punjab we have Keshopur, Miani, Bias Reserve, and Nangal. And from UP we have Nawabganj, Parvati Agra, Saman, Sabaspur, Sandi, and Sarsai Navar. Oh, we need not remember the complete names. At least if we try to see these names twice to thrice, we will be in a position to eliminate them. Like if there is an option saying Saman is in Punjab, if we know the 3 sites roughly in Punjab, and if we know that something starts with S is there in UP also, we can eliminate that, right? So don't worry if you don't remember all, because everyone cannot remember all the names. At least we have to get acquainted with those names, right? We have to get familiar with those names so that we can eliminate them at least, right? So this is about Ramsar sites. 10 new sites added recently. Total 37 are there in India now, 37 Ramsar sites. Ramsar Convention is about preserving and protecting the wetlands. International Network of Wetlands Preparing is the objective. Montrex record is also there. From India, 2 sites are there. What are they? Loktak Lake in Manipur and Keolado Ghana in Rajasthan. These 2 are important. And these new 10 wetlands also we have discussed. And the prelims 2019 question also, just go through it, guys. So the next topic is circular economy. Circular economy. This term is also very important because this is an emerging topic and is a much needed topic also. It's a much needed feature of economy for sustainable development. That's why we have to know this. So normally we know 3 R's of environment: reduce, reuse, and recycle, right? But this circular economy talks about 5 R's. It talks about 5 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, remanufacture, And the fifth one is repair. Repair, right? So reduce, reuse, recycle, remanufacture, and repair. These are the 5 R's under this circular economy, right? So before discussing about circular economy, we have to discuss about the present economical model which is being followed in most of the countries. The present economic model followed by most of the countries is linear economic model. Mostly followed is linear economic model. What is linear economic model? Linear economic model, to simply say, is get the raw materials, make the processing, manufacture the product, use it and throw it. This is called linear economy. Linear economy, to simply say, take, make, consume, throw away, right? This is the economic model which is being adopted by most of the countries. What they do, they take the raw materials, say some minerals are taken, right? Or some chemicals are taken, plastics is manufactured, we are consuming the plastics, we are using the plastics, plastic bags, plastic spoons, whatever, and then we are throwing it. This is called linear economic model. Because of this, waste generation is increasing. As the population increased, as more and more products are being consumed, waste generation is increasing. If this kind of economic model is being employed, or this kind of economic model is being used. That's why rather than linear economy, circular economy is being proposed. Now, what is circular economy? Circular economy means the waste which we spoke about. From that waste, we'll try to derive resources so that they can be used as raw materials for other industries, right? Even creating wealth from the waste is what is the circular economy, right? Rather than throwing the plastics away or disposing the plastics, using them in manufacturing of cements or using them in manufacturing of roads, right? This is called circular economy, right? Don't confuse circular economy with recycling. Recycling is just one of the component of circular economy. Remanufacturing is there and repairing is there. For example, if a device is not functioning, it's dysfunctional, rather than throwing it away in the dustbin, it is remanufactured or it is repaired so that product life cycle will increase. The overall objective of circular economy is to increase the life cycle of a product. Use each and every component of the product or the waste as much as possible rather than simply throwing them away, right? If there is a mobile phone, rather than throwing it and making it an electronic waste, recovering useful things from it and using them as raw materials, right? We have lithium batteries in the mobile devices and we have plastics in the mobile devices, right? All these can be again be used as raw materials and recovered in other industries, right? So this is the concept of circular economy, and this, in this way, it is different from linear model, right? And this reduces waste generation a lot, right? Because we are trying to recover something from the waste. And Niti Aayog in one of the report predicted that within the coming 5 to 7 years, around 1.4 crore jobs potential is there in this circular economy, right? Around 1.4 crore jobs potential is there in this circular economy in the coming 5 to 7 years. This is important. And some of the benefits of the circular economy are greenhouse gas emissions will reduce because, for example, for manufacturing steel, take an example of manufacturing of steel. For manufacturing of steel, we need iron ore, we also need coal, we also need limestone, right? Now, for bringing this iron ore, coal and processing them, some greenhouse gas emissions will come. Now, what we are doing is, we are using the scrap steel as raw material. Scrap steel, the steel which we threw away, that is also being used as raw material for the steel. By using the scrap steel, we are reducing the consumption of iron ore and coal. Previously, if we are taking 1 kg of iron ore and 1 kg of coal, now half kg of iron ore and half kg of coal is enough because already something which is a steel is being reused, right? The scrap steel, the waste steel is being used. So in this way, less greenhouse gas emissions will be there, less waste disposal will be there, right? Economic growth will be there. This is an emerging sector in the economy, right? And also competitive products can be made. Just imagine if we are able to recover something from waste and use it, definitely our dependence on imported raw materials will decrease. That means input costs will decrease for an industry, right? It need not buy the new raw material. It also has the raw material from the waste. So it will buy less raw material from the market. So less input cost. Overall, the product of the price will reduce, right? So competitive products and local supply chains can be developed because of this circular economy. That is one benefit. And less externalities will be there. That means soil pollution, air pollution, water pollution will be less. Take the example of plastics. If we adopt this circular economy model for plastics, then plastics won't be spoiling the water, right? They won't be polluting the soil, or they will be less polluting because we are releasing less plastics into the environment. We are reusing them, right? So these are some of the benefits. So circular economy overall, this is the concept. 5 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, remanufacture, and repair. The first topic in governance is cabinet committees. Cabinet committees. This is important because last year 2 new cabinet committees were set up, right? 2 new cabinet committees were set up. Now we should not be focusing only on those 2 cabinet committees. Rather, we should study the other cabinet committees also, right? UPSC, another nickname for it is Unpredictable Service Commission. So it might ask questions from wherever possible. So we have to focus on the other committees also, guys. And what is the function of the committees? All these dimensions we have to see, right? So 2 new committees were set up. One committee was on investment and growth. So one committee is Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth. Second new committee is Committee on Employment and Skill Development, right? Committee on Employment and Skill Development. This is the second committee. So if we see the first committee, Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth, 2 features of this committee, or 2 reasons why this committee was set up, is to identify key projects where investment is more than 1,000 crores. That means big investment projects, critical projects, right? Projects which are very much needed for the growth, infrastructure projects, all these projects. To identify such projects, this Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth was set up. And also to facilitate easy approvals and clearances for this infrastructure projects, because if you see the present context of the economy, economic slowdown is happening even from the last year itself, right? Quarter by quarter, the growth rate is not so supportive, right? It is reducing. So economic slowdown basically is because of investments not picking up, consumption demand not picking up. So to deal with those challenges, this Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth was set up, right? To identify all those big infrastructure projects and give them easy approvals and easy clearances so that economy will revive. This is the first committee. Second committee is Cabinet Committee on Employment and Skill Development. Now what this committee does is it focuses on skill development. If we see the present scenario of our country, demographic dividend is something which is spoken of very much often, right? So demographic dividend means the potential which the India has. India has the youngest population, largest youth population, right? Those people in the age group of 15 to 59 years of age, these are the productive workforce for the country. Now India is having the largest population among this age group, right? So demographic dividend means the potential of this age group people contributing to the economy. Now that will happen only when we give good education and good skill development for the people, right? Or else they will become demographic disaster, right? Unemployment will be there. That is more burden on the government, right? So this Cabinet Committee on Employment and Skill Development focuses on skill development, employability of the workforce, and enhancing the demographic dividend. These are the three objectives. Overall, if we remember, it's enough for prelims. For mains, we'll deal it later. So what are these cabinet committees? Are they constitutional bodies? Are they statutory bodies? No, they are not constitutional bodies, and they are also not statutory bodies. They are called extra constitutional bodies, right? They are called extra constitutional bodies set up under Transaction of Business Rules 1961, right? The government of India has some rules. Business rules means the rules on which the government of India operates. So under this Transaction of Business Rules 1961, these extra constitutional bodies like cabinet committees were set up. This is the first thing which we have to know, right? They are not constitutional, they are not statutory. And these are set up by the Prime Minister depending on the situation. Whenever he wants, he can set up a committees, just like how he has created 2 new committees. In the similar way, there is no such rule in the constitution or in the rules saying only these number of committees should be there. Nothing like that. Depending on the situations, if they demand, Prime Minister can form a cabinet committee on any topic, on any issue. And this is basically brought to reduce the burden on the cabinet. What is cabinet? Cabinet is group of cabinet ministers, right? They take cabinet meetings. They attend cabinet meetings. Now, if all the issues have to be taken by all the cabinet ministers, it's waste of time and it's burden on the cabinet also. Rather, divide the cabinet into cabinet committees. If there is some issue related to women and child, keep it in such a committee where women and child development minister is there, HRD minister, education minister is there, and health minister is there. It's their work, right? Defense minister has nothing to do with this women and child development issue. In this way, prioritizing issues, right? Dividing the functions and reducing the burden on the cabinet. For that reason, these cabinet committees are brought in, right? And also for in-depth examination. Now, all the cabinet ministers sitting can't discuss on corona pandemic. If you take the example of corona pandemic, Home Ministry, Health Ministry, right, Civil Aviation Ministry, these are the people who have a lot of work. These are the people who have to do a lot of research and lot of groundwork, right? So these will be forming a committee and will be taking care of them. That is the philosophy behind this, right? This is just an example. So in-depth examination is possible only when we have cabinet committees, right? So what is the composition of cabinet committees? Usually only cabinet ministers will be seen in the cabinet committee. So other than cabinet ministers also we have ministers, right? Ministers of state and ministers of state independent charge. All these together make up the council of ministers. So cabinet ministers are only a part of this council of ministers. Now the composition of the cabinet committees, cabinet ministers are only seen usually, but that does not imply other ministers should not be a part, right? That's wrong. Other ministers are also invited on special circumstances, right? So if there is an option saying cabinet committee's composition is only made up of cabinet ministers only, that is wrong. Other ministers also can be invited, but generally we see only cabinet ministers in the committees, right? This is one point where we have to be careful. Now, who is the head of the committee? Does Prime Minister head all the committees? No. Prime Minister is the head only for 6 committees. 2 other committees, Prime Minister is not the head, right? Home Minister is the head for one committee, and Parliament Affairs Minister is the head for another committee, right? So in this way, Prime Minister is not the head. So if we need not remember the head of all the committees, but we should remember this fact that for all the committees, Prime Minister is not the head, because there can be an option, assume if there is an option saying Prime Minister chairs or presides all the cabinet committee meetings, cabinet committees meetings. That's wrong. He is not the chairman for all the committees, right? He is the chairman for 6 committees. Now, some of the important committees which we have to know. Appointments Committee of the Cabinet. appointments committee of the cabinet. So this appointments committee of the cabinet is in news because of CBI issue. Last year there was a CBI issue. Just find it out, guys. Sorry, not last year. In the year 2018, which was carried into 2019 also. Yeah. So there was a CBI issue. CBI chief appointment issue was there. According to Lokpal Act, CBI chief should be appointed by a committee, but appointments committee appointed it. A committee where leader of opposition, prime minister, they all should together appoint the CBI chief. But this appointments committee where only ministers are there, they have appointed the CBI chief. So just find out that issue. Because of that CBI issue, this appointments committee was in the news, right? So this basically does, what is the function of this appointments committee? High level appointments. High level appointments for high bodies, like so for some statutory bodies or for some constitutional bodies, right? For those appointments, this appointments committee of the cabinet will take care. That is the function of this appointments committee. Second committee is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. This committee is most often seen in the news. This is the committee which declares the MSP, minimum support price for the farmers. CCEA, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, right? This is the committee that declares MSP. There is another called CACP, Commission on Agricultural Practices, that recommends MSP, and CCEA, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, this declares the MSP for every Kharif, Rabi seasons, right? So that is the function of the CCEA. Third thing is Parliamentary Affairs Cabinet Committee or Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs. So as the name itself says, its function is scheduling the business of the government in the parliament. In Lok Sabha, what is the government's business? In Rajya Sabha, what is the government's business? Are there any legislations that are being introduced by any minister? Scheduling that bill. All these things are done by Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs. Now, Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs. This basically takes care of domestic and foreign affairs policies of India. Within India, internal security, and also outside India, foreign affairs, politics related issues, right? Politics related issues, this Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs takes care. And then Cabinet Committee for Security. This is important, guys. Cabinet Committee on Security, like Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs is also in news. Cabinet Committee on Security is also there in news. This is about national security issues, right? National security issues, any border disputes. During the Pulwama attack also, the CCS was very much in news. It was very much actively engaging. During the Balakot attacks also, the CCS was in news. They take some major decisions related to national security, internal security as well as external security also, right? So National Security, Cabinet Committee for Security, and another committee is Cabinet Committee on Accommodation, right? So these are some committees. So this is overall about cabinet committees. Two new committees. What are they? First one is investment and growth. Second one is employment and skill development, right? These are extra constitutional bodies set up under Transaction of Business Rules 1961. Our Prime Minister can set up it at any time he wants. This is to reduce the workload on the cabinet. Usually cabinet ministers are members, but other ministers can also be welcomed, and some of the committees we have discussed, right? So we'll quickly take up Niti Aayog also. Some important facts about Niti Aayog. First of all, the full form for Niti Aayog is National Institution for Transforming India. That is the full form of Niti Aayog. National Institution for Transforming India. Right? Previously, Planning Commission used to be there. This must have been covered for you in economy also. So in 1950, Planning Commission was set up, but it was replaced by Niti Aayog in 2015. Right? Because of some major changes in the economic policies of the country, Planning Commission was not serving the purpose. That's when Niti Aayog was set up. So this Niti Aayog is basically a think tank and an advisory body to the government. It's a think tank and an advisory body for the government. So cooperative federalism and competitive federalism are two important features of this Niti Aayog, right? Cooperative federalism and competitive federalism. These are the two important features of this Niti Aayog. Cooperative federalism means all these states coming together as a part of nation development plans. So if any plans are being made for nation development, all the states are given representation, right? In the Niti Aayog, the decisions are taken by a council called Governing Council. Governing Council is the decision-making body of Niti Aayog. This Governing Council has representation of all the chief ministers of the states and lieutenant governors of the union territories, right? Chief ministers of the states and lieutenant governors of the UTs. All these make up this Governing Council. So in this way, previously in Planning Commission, this mechanism was not there, right? In the Planning Commission, this mechanism was not there. States were not given that much importance, right? The central government used to prepare plans and give it to the states. That's not the case now. States are made as stakeholders of the plan development, right? That's why it's called cooperative federalism. Now it's also called competitive federalism. Why is it called competitive federalism? Niti Aayog tries to bring out different rankings and indexes, right? It tries to bring out different rankings and indices and promotes competition between the states. Competition between the states in terms of health, sanitation, etc., right? So some of the indexes brought by Niti Aayog are Healthy States Progressive India. Healthy States Progressive India. This is an index brought by Niti Aayog. What does it do? It tries to assess the competition between the states. Like how are they spending their expenditures on health? How is the health infrastructure in the states, right? All these are measured and rankings are given. So that is Healthy States Progressive India Index. Find more details about this, guys, like which state is leading, which state is at the bottom, right? All these you just try to find them out. Second index is Composite Water Management Index. Composite Water Management Index. What does this index do? Through this index, Niti Aayog tries to assess the water conservation efforts of every state. What is the scenario? What is the actual scenario in every state? How are they conserving water? How are they treating the wastewater? How is the sewage treatment infrastructure in every state? All this come in this. Aspirational districts delta rankings. Just find about this also. Aspirational districts delta rankings. This is also, so these are some ways how competitive federalism is brought in, right? So you just get into more details of these indexes, right? So accountability is more in Niti Aayog compared to Planning Commission. How? Planning Commission used to give plans for every 5 years once, right? This we all know. Every 5 years, Planning Commission used to prepare the plan. After the 5 years only, they used to revise any changes are there in the coming plan. But Niti Aayog is not like that. Niti Aayog tries to assess the plan every 3 years once, right? Niti Aayog has both short-term and long-term planning. 15 years plan will be there. 7 years vision will be there. 3 years action plan will be there, right? Keeping 15 years in view, it prepares plans for 7 years and strategies for every 3 years. So this is the objective of Niti Aayog. So short-term and long-term planning is also there in Niti Aayog. That we have to know. And innovation is also very much in Niti Aayog. For example, it runs a mission called Atal Innovation Mission. Atal Innovation Mission. This mission is being implemented by Niti Aayog. This was a straightforward question in 2019 prelims, right? So for all those who knew that Atal Innovation Mission was being implemented by Niti Aayog, that question was a cakewalk. Otherwise, we cannot answer that question, right? It's like a factual question only. And the options were also very misleading. Science and Technology Ministry was also there, right? So innovation, mostly we try to link it to Science and Technology Ministry, but actually it was which was implementing this, right? So that is one mission. And who is the chairman of this Niti Aayog? It's the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the chairperson for this Niti Aayog. But Prime Minister is not the CEO of this Niti Aayog, right? Prime Minister is not the CEO. CEO is a different person who is appointed by the President. And also Niti Aayog is not a statutory body and it's also not a constitutional body. That also we must have the clarity, right? Niti Aayog is not a constitutional body. It is also not a statutory body. And one major difference between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog is Planning Commission used to have financial powers also. It used to recommend grants to the states. But Niti Aayog does not have any financial powers. It only prepares the plans and gives them to the states. That's it. It prepares indexes, it promotes innovation, all these things are there, but financial powers are not there for Niti Aayog. And some of the initiatives of Niti Aayog are, one is NGO Darpan portal, which we have discussed yesterday, right? That is maintained by Niti Aayog, NGO Darpan portal. Decentralized planning is one of the feature of Niti Aayog, right? We have seen even states are made a part of planning through governing council. So decentralized planning is there in Niti Aayog. There is another program called Aspirational Districts Program. Aspirational Districts Program. All the backwards districts in various states, they are termed as aspirational districts under this program. And basic infrastructure, basic water facilities, other infrastructures, all will be improved in these districts, right? So aspirational districts program, that is also an initiative of Niti Aayog, because these are schemes. So we might think that these are implemented by some ministries, but that's not the case, right? So just like how Atal Innovation Mission was asked, maybe aspirational districts program can also be asked. So get into details of this program, but this is being implemented by Niti Aayog, right? And also Niti Aayog runs Women Entrepreneurship Portal. Women Entrepreneurship Portal is also run by Niti Aayog, right? This is also a confusing thing, because Women Entrepreneurship Portal is being launched or maintained by, an option can be Niti Aayog, the other option can be Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because this is related to entrepreneurship. The third thing can be Ministry of Women and Child Development, because this is related to women, right? We should not get carried away. It's Niti Aayog which runs this Women Entrepreneurship Portal, right? This is about Niti Aayog, guys, some basic facts. And the time is 4. Okay, that's it for today. And if you see today's newspaper, there are some important topics. In fact, so many international relations related topics are there in today's newspaper. Just go through them. First issue is UN banning Huawei company of China in 5G. Now this news is getting carried through the entire 2019 year, right? This was a news for the entire 2019 year. So what is 5G? How is it different from 4G? Just get to know all this. And how is allocation done, right? Spectrum allocation done in India. What is this 5G allocation? How is it done? Which is the ministry responsible? Which is the organization that regulates 5G in India? Just get to know all these details about 5G. The second thing is Pragyata guidelines given by Human Resource Development Ministry. This was in headlines page of Hindu today. These Pragyata guidelines are about online education. Some guidelines are released about online education by Ministry of Human Resource and Development. Just go through those guidelines and know that it is an initiative of MHRD. And Kaziranga National Park was also in the news. Because of Assam floods and some other issues, tigers are getting carried away here and there, right? Kaziranga National Park is there. Just find out what animals are famous there. One-horned rhinoceros and all are there. Just find out the IUCN status of those. Which river passes through Kaziranga, right? Whether it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site or not. Just find it out, that also, right? So in this way, you have to try to analyze about national parks. And also, yesterday, CPI was there. Consumer Price Index was there in the news. Today, WPI was there. Wholesale Price Index was published. Just find out the details. What is CPI? Which ministry publishes it? What are the goods included in it? What is WPI? Which ministry publishes this? What are the major goods involved in this? Right? What are the other types of inflation measured? Just see all this. And China, Iran was also in the news again. Chabahar port. Right? Yesterday also I have told. The Chabahar port was in the news. Just go through that. Maldives India relation was also in the news, right? So just get to see what are the relations between Maldives and India. Are there any important projects? Just see those. And spike missiles were also there in the news. India is trying to buy more spike missiles from Israel, right? So spike missiles are Israeli missiles and they are anti-tank missiles. Just get to know the details, which country is giving us and what is its function. Just get these 2 to 3 details about spike missiles. Also, 2 drugs were there in the news today, right? 2 drugs were there related to COVID. One was itolizumab and the second one was tocilizumab. This itolizumab and tocilizumab. Just find out what are these drugs about. All the drugs which are in news related to corona, just have a brief overlook of those. What are the different ways in which diagnostic tests are done for corona? Just get to know those also, right? What is ICMR? What is Drug Controller General of India? These are the bodies revolving in the news, right? All these try to get a holistic picture. And also EU-India ties were also there, European Union, India. BTIA, there is an investment agreement called Broad-Based Trade and Investment Agreement, which is under negotiation still between EU and India. Just get to know about that also. And South China Sea disputes were also there in today's news. United States has made a comment on China regarding South China Sea. Now, South China Sea, China and various other countries have some controversies over ownership of islands.